Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Between Ukraine and Russia. Did you know that the Russian airborne forces as a branch of the military practically no longer exist in reality? August 2nd is when Russian Federation celebrates the Day of the Airborne Forces. This are the main failures of the vaunted airborne forces of the occupiers and how they became a disgrace to the Russian army. First was the attempt to attack Kiev through the Gostomel airfield on February 24 and 25, 2022. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation planned a lightning-fast operation. The troops landed from helicopters at the airport, secured, and dozens of transport Il-76s with the main military personnel landed behind them. Armored vehicles came from Belarus. And then, a throw to Kiev. 6 out of 35 helicopters that were sent for assault were shot down by the Ukrainian air defense on approach. Those who managed to land from the surviving helicopters were covered with artillery. And then the runway was smashed. It was possible to forget about repeated landing attempts in Gostomel. The stalled offensive in the Izium direction from April to August 2022. On April 1st, Izium was occupied by Russian troops, including the landing here. The area was planned to be used as a springboard for an offensive in the Slavyansko-Kramatorsk direction, but the occupiers could not advance. In September, the armed forces of Ukraine launched a counter-offensive in the Kharkiv-Izium direction. The Russians were threatened with encirclement. Their supply routes were cut. As a result, the enemy group retreated, leaving weapons and equipment in a panic. Crossing the Seversky Donets River, May 2022. The armed forces of Ukraine destroyed a pontoon bridge with Russian equipment at the Seversky Donets crossing near the village of Belogorovka, Luhansk region. Under the fire of our artillery, the enemy lost about 100 pieces of equipment and more than 400 personnel. British intelligence said that the Russian units of the airborne forces suffered significant losses. The airborne forces of the Russian Federation consisted of about 45,000 military personnel. In Ukraine, paratroopers were used in missions that would be better suited for heavy infantry, and they suffered significant losses. According to intelligence, the Russian airborne forces as a branch of the military no longer exist. And in occupied Mariupol, partisans massively poisoned the officers of the invaders. According to the advisor to the mayor of the city, Andriushchenko, they were poisoned during the celebration of the Navy Day at one of the military facilities. As a result, 17 occupiers were admitted to the hospital in serious condition, and 2 officers flew to the forefathers yesterday. According to Andriushchenko, Russians suspect that cyanide and pesticides were added to the food. In the past 4 days at least, 27 drafting offices were set on fire in Russia and temporarily occupied Crimea. Just yesterday, there were about 20 attempts to set drafting offices on fire. Even retirees were involved. The oldest is 84 years old. Yuri Shvitkin, deputy chairman of the Russian Parliament Defense Committee, believes it is quite possible that ordinary people started setting fire to military enlistment offices because of emotional shock after the Russian Parliament and the Federation Council approved the law on raising draft age to 30 years with the lower limit of 18 years. So the government realizes that it is in conflict with the people. And mass arson of military enlistment offices is an attempt of the latter to demonstrate their discontent. All that the Russian authorities can do is to intensify repression and propaganda. Russia is gradually boiling over. As repressions intensify, the logical response is to intensify resistance. Ukrainian FPV loitering munition strike targeting the rear of a Russian T-72B3 with a catastrophic ammunition detonation. If you have seen a photo of the alleged mercenary Wagner on the Polish border online, you should know that it is photoshopped. Russians are already spreading a new fake. Minus another Russian 203mm self-propelled gun, 2 S-7 Pion. Unsustainable artillery losses for Russia. These videos have become pretty common every day. This young Russian woman advises Russian men to go to the army because there, they'll learn hygiene. She'd go herself, but Russia doesn't mobilize women. Referring to Gherkin Strelkov, she is of the opinion that everywhere bloggers are imprisoned for affronting the head of the state, so why should Russia be different? Now, her premise is obviously false, but she can't imagine a different world, or even suggest it could be different, so she's absolutely certain in her assumption. Referring to Navalny, she doesn't see the difference between the elected position of president and the leadership of an organization created by a private individual. She demands Navalny was also replaced by somebody, and since he wasn't, Putin can also not be replaced for 20+ years, but who cares? Now, Gherkin isn't just a blogger and should have been detained for his war crimes, and I am not a fan of the Russian liberal imperialist Navalny. However, she is still hilariously and also harmfully wrong. She'll probably be the first to enlist when Russia begins drafting women, right? She has no problem sending off her mates to die to the trenches and says that everything is fine. People walk around and enjoy everything. For the billionth time, the Russian war against Ukraine isn't just Putin's war. It's the war of the Russian Federation and the Russian people en masse. For the end, a note for self-defense. It's old, but let's see that again. We have 2 idiots and a great reaction of the instructor on the shooting range.
Thanks for watching.
Si no puedes aportar económicamente al canal, suscríbete, comenta y comparte, esto ayudará mucho a seguir informando.